name's Ryan Capretta, founder, director, Proactive Sports out here in Southern California. You're at a high performance facility that works with athletes and regular fitness enthusiasts from all different sports. You'll see what we're doing today is an NFL off-season program. We work with NBA athletes, Olympic sprinters, all types of people. So you're going to see a little bit of everything here. So ultimately, when we launched Proactive, the vision was having everything under one roof. And you hear about that, but it takes a lot of professionals to operate a high-functioning facility. So when you look at the athlete's day, they're going to come in, they're going to have their meeting with the nutritionist, and their chef is going to cook their individualized meal, and then they'll work on some soft tissue work with the physical therapist, possibly do some testing with our sports scientist, get into some lifting with the coaches, do some position-specific work, some treatment, some recovery. So it's, the vision is just really having the athlete come here and not have to leave. In Los Angeles, especially, it's nice to not to have to fight traffic and go to 5 places. So truly, it's about having everything under one roof for the athlete. So we first started working with Wattbike back in about 2013. And what we love about it is it's a tool, number one, that's reliable. So it's obviously there's a lot of great things, and we can talk about all the features, but ultimately it's a piece that for the last decade plus we go to and we know what it's about. We can rely on it, and we can use it in different facets. So whether it's a phase 1 of a football program, or a young basketball player getting ready for their in-season, or just steady state cardio, whatever it is for the average person trying to lose some weight, we can train power, we can train endurance, we can train power endurance, cardiovascular work. There's so many different options with the Wattbike, so that's ultimately why we love using it. It's always there for us. It's never breaking down. Very sturdy piece of equipment, and it gives us digital metrics that we can record and track over time. So again, one of the things when you look at why Wattbike, we love competing, we love leaderboards, we love having, whether it's, again, if it's an athlete or just a regular person, the Wattbike allows us those tools to track and progress each person. With the metrics, when you look at specifically what do we use here at Proactive, we will use the 6-second test. So we love looking at power on the 6-second test, and depending on who it is and what time of the off season, we'll hit repeats of that. So we track obviously what is their peak, but multiple repeats, what is the fall off, and how are we looking at that? So that's dependent on sport and ultimately where the athlete is in their progression. We also love the 30-second test. That's another test we use across populations. And then, getting into the 3-minute test. That's another test we use. Something that's specific to our facility that we love is the Hotbox 20. So we put the Wattbike in our climate room, which is about 110 degrees with infrared tiles on top. So it gets a little uncomfortable, and they let it rip for 20 minutes and we track mileage. So we just really see it's RPMs, what they can do in 20 minutes, and it's something that the athletes and general population has loved competing on over the years. Typically what we're looking at with the metrics on the 6-second, it's peak. So number one, we want to make sure they're in the right setting to give maximal effort. So that's not always going to be a test we do phase 1 right out the gates. We want to get their body calibrated and ready, but ultimately it's about that peak number. So giving them plenty of rest in between bouts and not turning it into just a conditioning event. So it's really about hitting it hard, letting them recover, and then repeating that metric. The 30-second test, that's going to be something that gives us a deeper look into diving into a little more of a conditioning effect. And again, for a football player, it might just be a 1 interval within the lift that we do. For a basketball player, if they're not running up and down the court, that'll turn into repeats, and we'll track that and see the fall off from 1 week to the next and 1 phase to the next. The 3-minute test is a test that's more general fitness, so we're going to look at that from a general programming standpoint that somebody can do at the beginning of a phase, and maybe they're on a journey just to get in overall shape. And that's a great metric that we can look at to see okay, here's what you're doing with your general fitness, and it's improved. So with the Wattbike, it's a tool that we use not only for performance, but also our physical therapy department uses it pretty high frequent rate with whether it might be BFR training or steady state, getting the athlete back moving. We'll use it on so many different levels, so it might be a movement prep before they get out and do dynamic work, or it might be an athlete coming off a knee or a lower limb injury where they're limited. So it allows us just to train them in a safe setting. Again, incorporating some BFR training with the Wattbike is something that our therapists love doing, and they have a lot of different styles and ways that they approach it. But again, it's a very diverse tool for us, and it's something we love using every day. Well, there's a couple I guess you could say love hates. When you're doing the intervals in between heavy weights and a metabolic style workout, it's always uncomfortable for these guys. So it's a love-hate for sure. And I mean, we can push these guys to the edge and they'll usually walk right through it. So it's a love-hate. I mentioned the Hotbox 20. I mean, that's absolutely a love-hate. Like, you start doing it and it's mentally challenging. You're sitting there for 20 minutes going all out. Nobody loves to do that. But once you get metrics and you're seeing what your buddies and your peers are doing, that's when it turns into a fun competition. We can see like how we can push them. So I would say that. And then when you toss in BFR and anything, that's going to get pretty uncomfortable, and that's got a love-hate to it as well. So I would say those would be the main ones. When you look at our competition, everybody is going to go all out on it, whatever the exercise is. So when we're talking about the Wattbike, one of the players that you saw, Lucas Van Ness, big dude, 6'5", 270. He's one of the leaders in that Hotbox 20 for us. So you wouldn't think a large individual like that is leading the chain. We've had some professional, endurance athletes that have trained in here and haven't been able to beat his numbers. You look at some of the other basketball players that have had success on some of our metrics, and so again, it crosses sports. That's the fun part about it, is it's able to level out the playing field and track numbers that are specific to that person. So that's what we love about it. When you take a snapshot of what's going on in here, that is the fun part, is looking at players from different teams, the camaraderie. They might be on a rival team, but they're competing against each other in the off season. You have an athlete like JC Horn, who just signed a huge deal. He's here, getting his body right so he can now prove his contract and go all out for his team. And then you have, some players like an Aaron Rodgers, who's obviously on the backside of his career, but fitness has always been important to him. So he's coming off that year one of Achilles, and now it's like time to prove it, go to another team. Then the summer, when you have the basketball players come and mesh with the football players, it's always like a competition thing of, the football guys think they can hoop and the hoopers think they can put on the helmet. So it is fun seeing the cross in the mix. And it really comes down to like having an atmosphere that people like to crave to be around, because training's uncomfortable, right? And it puts you in a position where you have to make a decision if you're going to shut it down or continue to break through and push harder. And that's what that environment is so important. When athletes come in here, we want them to feel that environment of competition, yes, but it's not like drill sergeant, make you tougher. It's like, we're naturally just going to compete. And by doing that, and by putting these athletes that are highly motivated in this environment, they're going to answer the bell every time. I guess if I were to look at like giving advice to a younger coach, I would look at diversity. That's the main thing. So when you look at a lot of weight rooms, it's just racks, or it might be just certain one thing. I love exposing athletes to different modalities, different training devices within a workout. And that's where, again, when you look at Wattbike, that's how it is meshed so well with us, is we're able to work on power on different movements that are maybe specific to the athlete's sport, but then also pop them on the Wattbike and let them rip, and let them really increase that heart rate, whether it's more cardiovascular or power. Again, it's just providing a diverse training tool that we use in all elements and all phases in different sports.